Good day. This is Tim Francis from Great Assistant, and we've got an awesome success story today with Sarah Olivieri. How are you today, Sarah?
I am very well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be talking to you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for being here. So, getting a great assistant is a red hot topic for entrepreneurs, and a lot of entrepreneurs really struggle with being successful with getting an assistant into place. And oftentimes they struggle in different areas like finding the right assistant, knowing what to delegate, knowing how to let go of control and release trust. That's oftentimes a really, really big one. And Sarah, I appreciate you being here today to answer a few questions about what you found to be really successful for you on your journey of getting your own great assistant. So before we go any further, let's let everyone know what your business is, what it is that you do, and how many people are on your team.
Sure. Our business is called Pivot Ground, and we do business consulting for nonprofit organizations. And we now have 3 people on our core team.
Awesome. And what was life like before getting an assistant?
Well, before my great assistant, I had hired another assistant who was great, so great that she elevated very quickly. And because I had had her, we were very aware of when we were going to reach our next capacity level. And so we knew we needed to get another assistant. I had tried getting assistants myself before and had several failures. So I knew I had gotten really lucky with this one, and chances of repeating that were not likely. And we knew we were growing very, very quickly. So we weren't overwhelmed yet, but only because we were extremely aware that that was a possibility, and we had a very tight timeline. So we knew we needed to get that great assistant fast.
Okay, great. So what challenges were you facing prior to getting an assistant? Kind of paint the picture for everyone who's watching. What were the kind of day-to-day tasks that you were bumping up against?
Sure. So for me, there were a number of things that I wanted to do, but I was unable to do. So for example, I wanted to make sure I have a lot of client calls, and I wanted to make sure that I followed up with every client after a call, and also that I sent a manual appointment reminder email in addition to our automated emails that were going out. So those were some of the things, along with a lot of scheduling work. We work with very busy executive directors, and there's a lot of scheduling, a lot of rescheduling, emergencies come up for them. So that work was taking up a lot of my business partner's time, Sonia, and she was unable to do the marketing work that we had put on her plate. So it was kind of reaching critical mass and kind of cascading that we weren't able to do everything that we really needed to do in that moment.
Okay, so you were really under a lot of scheduling kind of workload. And what is it that specifically you weren't getting around to doing? Like, so you mentioned marketing. So Sonia, what is it that you weren't getting around to because you were crushed under all this lower level work?
Yeah, we weren't able to market as much. We're now doing content marketing much more frequently. So we were able to put out new content about once a month, where we wanted to be putting it out daily pretty much, or at least 5 days a week. That was one thing we weren't able to do because we didn't have enough capacity. And another thing was, while we were scheduling, because that was a very high priority item, we weren't necessarily doing the appointment confirmations and the follow-up emails that we wanted to be doing. So that wasn't getting done either.
And what else had you tried in the past? You mentioned you tried a number of times to get an assistant through different methods. What else had you tried in the past?
So getting an assistant is, it's tricky to hire people, the right people, the first time. Other things we have tried continue to work, and I totally stand by them. We always systematize anything that we do. We grow, we get a little messy. We're highly aware of that. We check in every 2 weeks on our growth. And so then we say, okay, we need to streamline. We just did this today. We said, our marketing assets are in too many places. Let's streamline. So we have the simplest number of marketing assets that will get the job done. So continuing to streamline. We use automation as well. I think that works really well with the assistants, so that we automate as much as we can, and we make sure that we have humans doing the things that are much more impactful when a human does one-on-one.
Great. So what advice would you give to an entrepreneur following in your footsteps around when to get an assistant or how to get an assistant? What wisdom have you acquired now that you wish you maybe even could have told yourself back when you started your assistant journey?
Definitely, I'd say work with you guys, or work with anybody to get help getting an assistant. Hiring the wrong person is probably the most expensive mistake I have ever made, the most expensive mistake anybody can ever make in the nonprofit industry. I know there was a study about turnover in fundraising staff, and I think the numbers, like, it costs 1.5 times that person's salary to replace them. Each time you have to replace them, and so it increases exponentially. And so I think it's similar, though, in any position. So definitely get help to make sure you hire the right person the first time. Otherwise, do delegate. I have never been a natural control monger. I always love delegating. But I think if you are like me, in that you don't want to just work every minute of your life, and you want to enjoy your kids if you have kids, or you want to enjoy your weekends, or if you have some sort of passion, the secret to growing a business is really, you can't be a business of one, and you have to be able to delegate well to have a business of many.
So what advice would you give people then in delegating? What is it that you've done in the art and science of delegation that has allowed you to pass things off effectively?
Sure. Well, I think there are a number of ways that people have figured out how to delegate, but for me, it really boils down to put yourself in the person's shoes who you're delegating to. What is their context when they are receiving this task? And make sure that you have given them everything they need to be successful in their context, whether it's links to the resources, or you remember to define what done looks like, or to tell them, if it's a really critical type task, make sure you reiterate that, like, it's critical, and check with you if they have any questions, versus something. I'm always clear to say, like, this has to be done right. If you're not sure, ask me, versus this just has to get done. I don't care how neat it is. If I'm not available, just push it out the door. You're not going to get in trouble. So those are really different types of things to delegate. And I think it's really helpful to be clear about your expectations when it comes to those things.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, I know we oftentimes talk about 360 delegation on our team, the vision, resources, and definition of done. I'm hearing a lot of the same words in what you're saying. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Very, very cool.
A pro tip that somebody taught me once is, if you use some sort of project management tool, chances are all the elements of 360 delegation are, like, in the links or in the features of the project, where you set the task. And I tell people, like, when all else fails, just use every feature in that task management tool, and you'll probably hit on everything.
Very cool. Very cool. So how much time would you say you've gotten back since getting your great assistant into place to free you up to focus on that zone of genius that we entrepreneurs love to focus on?
Yeah. Well, because I'm so protective of that time, I probably was just not doing certain things before in order to maintain that time. But there's still so much more mental space that I have. Even when I am taking my time, that time is even more, it's more valuable, because I'm not worried about what isn't getting done. And in fact, my great assistant is in my email, in my LinkedIn, in my Facebook. And so I know that if I step away, of my company, am not gone completely to the world, and things are going on, and I have complete confidence and trust in her. And so I can go out and enjoy myself. I can go all day or even 2 days without checking my email. And I know that if something really urgent comes up, I'll get a phone call or a text message, and they're the only ones who have that access to me. So true peace of mind.
I think you just made a lot of entrepreneurs jealous hearing that you can go a day or two without checking your email. So congratulations on that. That's a huge breakthrough. A lot of entrepreneurs wish they could be in your shoes, Sarah.
Thank you.
And I think you touched on something that's not obvious at first glance, but is a huge impact of getting an assistant. And that is relieving the psychic load that we have. Could you speak a little bit more to that?
Sure. Well, if you are an entrepreneur like me and you're a visionary, or you created the intellectual property of your company, whatever system or process you use to deliver your results, the most valuable thing that you can offer to your own business is brain capacity for that generative work that you do. And you don't have that brain capacity if you are worried about what's going on in your email or what's going on with your clients. You need everything else pretty much to work systematically and streamlined. The more you free up that brain time, the more value you'll get. I can share a little story, actually, not long after we had gotten our great assistant, and Sonia, who does our operations, she had set a goal I had been not working on Fridays, but work had kept creeping in a little bit, or I was thinking about things. And once she consistently got my Fridays off, all of a sudden I iterated on our services, and I probably tripled the value of what we were able to offer while reducing the expense of offering those services. Because I was hanging out with my son all weekend, and all of a sudden, you don't think you're working, but pop, I'm with like a pencil and paper in the old like napkin model, and I'm scribbling away. Oh, we need to do things this way. And completely, took our business leaps forward.
I think a lot of entrepreneurs sometimes struggle with knowing what the $500 to $5,000 an hour type work is. And some of the more obvious examples are, well, if you're negotiating on a deal, or you're selling, or doing a lot of, high level networking, that's usually a little more obvious to be like, even if you want to say $100 an hour and up type per hour type work. A little bit less clear, a little squishier, maybe a little fuzzier, but I think some of the highest value work is what you just described. When you're able, that's not even $5,000 an hour work. That's probably infinity dollars per hour work, because every month that goes by that your business is flying at that triple value, it just compounds again and again and again and again.
Absolutely. It was probably like $1 million+ weekend.
Right.
And it didn't feel like working, and I think that's a lot of entrepreneurs feel like if it doesn't feel like work, then it isn't it isn't good for your business, but it doesn't have to feel like work. And if you're a visionary type, if you're generative, if you're creative, it's probably not going to feel like work. There might be a little voice in you saying like, this isn't fair. Not in me, because I like having my free time, and I've learned my lesson enough that I need that to create the value. But you've got to give yourself permission that can be your job. And, you hear about those like really successful CEOs who seem like they're goofing off and like traveling the world and doing silly things. And you're like, oh, they're just making lots of money and like doing something else, but they're probably, working in their heads, and they're probably creating incredible value for their businesses.
I love hearing all those stories of entrepreneurs who solved a really tricky problem when they were like holding the hose, watering their lawn, because that was how they recharged, or walking their dog. I know for me personally, when I stand in the shower, it's just like my body relaxes and just amazing ideas come. And it's impossible to get that level of kind of transcendence, if you will, if you're constantly just grinding and trying to hold and juggle a million little things like emails and scheduling details and all the rest.
Absolutely. I think it's like if you've ever seen one of those like things like filled with beads or beans, and it's like, can you spot how many red beans there are? And it's like thousands and thousands of beans, and so it's like really hard to guess. But if you imagine, like, if your job is to be the red beans, if you just take all the other color beans out, and you might have a mostly empty jar, but now you can leverage like every single bean that's in there. But yeah, you have a mostly empty jar. You need that free space in your head to capture all the beans.
I love that. That's great. That's awesome. So make us all real jealous, Sarah. What's life like now?
Well, I definitely don't work on Fridays. We've decided we're very efficient in the way we work, and we're now able to accomplish all of our goals on time, which means we basically will shut down for most of the holiday season. End of November, December, we'll just take a break. That's nice. I spend, I'm busy because I spend a lot of time. I'm a sailboat racer. And so we're just actually ending the spring sailing season and we're tied for first place, which is really exciting for me. I spend lots of time with my son and going outside and all of that, while I think we're delivering the highest value services we ever have. We're making the biggest impact with our clients we ever have. So none of that free time for me is in any way a sacrifice for the business. And our team is extremely happy and dedicated and excited to be going where we're going.
It's super exciting. Congratulations on all that. If you could share one of your top tips or your top bit of advice for anyone who's watching this, who's thinking about getting an assistant, and whether that's through Great Assistant or not, they're thinking about taking that step to get some help in their business. Do you have any kind of tactic or any kind of mindset piece or any other kind of reassurance or anything like that for them?
Yeah, be brave and just do it. Because, my favorite, piece of advice to give people is good advice is pretty easy to find, especially if you pay a little money for it. You can get great advice. And many amazing people have given the advice that you can't do your business by yourself. A business of one person is not a business. It's not sustainable. It's not going to make you much money. But the hardest part about good advice is being brave enough to follow it. It's just, you have to follow the advice or it doesn't work. If you don't put skin in the game, it's not going to happen. So, if you're debating about whether or not to get help in your business, that's a no-brainer. I've heard that piece of advice from so many people. It's obviously good advice, but you got to just do it. You have to bite the bullet and do it. And it is such if you at all feel stuck in your business, it's because you don't have enough people. And I specialize with nonprofits in optimizing the human capacity that is in organizations. And if you just only have, one person or even two people, if you're at your capacity, you probably need to grow. And that is probably the number one most important thing that's holding you back.
Wow. Okay. And then if someone says, well, I don't know if I have the money to be able to get an assistant, especially someone based in the United States or Canada that's $17 to $20 an hour, what would you say to them then?
Cut your other expenses, cut your own salary if you have to get started. Definitely don't just do it willy-nilly. I'd say project out your earnings potential. But I have done that. I did that to hire my first person because I know that I'd rather cut my own salary for 2 months and have 3 years of incredible growth than I would to not cut my salary and then have all my growth be stagnated and never be able to have my own salary, increase or my free time increase. But oftentimes, working with nonprofits, I hear that a lot. We don't have the money. We don't have the money. It's usually because people have overextended. This is one area where make sure you bring on the right person, because you can only cut critical things for so long. But that is one of the things I would cut, a critical expense, even potentially your own salary, in order to bring that person on so that you can grow for both of you.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being such a beacon of hope for all entrepreneurs out there who are feeling kind of afraid, and that they can really lean on your words of courage to go for it. And for kind of showing entrepreneurs out there what the other side of the fence can look like. Once they take the leap, they cross that tipping point and have their very own help. So, and thank you also for being a Great Assistant client. Really special to me that I get to help you as you go out into the world and make your impact. You're making a huge difference in the world of nonprofits. And I feel like I almost get to sneak in and help you to amplify. I mean, you're helping thousands of people and I get to help amplify that through our service, Great Assistant. So thanks for being an amazing client, and congratulations on all your successes. And thanks for being here today.
Thank you. It's really my pleasure.
Awesome. Thanks.